Hello boys and girls, welcome to the Mistweaver Monk Guide for 10.2, a patch where it turns out the Mistweaver Monk is probably going to be playing quite well. We'll be going to your main skills, rotations, cooldowns, utilities and everything else you need to know, including the 4-piece tier set bonus, so that you can successfully finish Mythic Plus dungeons. But before that, let's do a few prerequisites. Keep in mind that the Mistweaver Monk in M+ is a melee class, and it does a lot of healing by doing damage similar to the Disciplined Priests. Its melee range is also very short, let's say compared to a Holy Paladin, so that makes it a little bit harder to play in my opinion, and if you for some reason have to be at range and not hitting the mobs in melee, you can find yourself in a lot of trouble. So, having said that, let's go into some of the main skills that you'll be using in the dungeons. Starting with Renewing Mist, you have 2 charges of this and you can cast a hot on a target, which will automatically jump to another target if the initial one is already at full health. You will be casting this on cooldown because it's a very important skill that not only does a lot of passive healing, but it also synergizes with a lot of other skills, a lot of other talents, and your 4-piece tier set bonus that we're going to mention later. For example, Gust of Mist, which is a passive that you get as a monk based on your mastery, is going to heal the primary target of your Renewing Mist with initial heal. That also works with some of your other spells that we're going to mention later, so keep that in mind. And then the other important spell that you're going to be using a lot is Vivify. This is your single target heal, which has a cast time, but as we're going to see very shortly, there's many ways to make it instant cast. For example, you have a Vivification talent which every 10 seconds makes your next Vivify instant cast, and to add to some of the synergies that we already mentioned, every target that has a Renewing Mist sticking on them is going to also get healed by the Vivifies. Let's also mention Enveloping Mist here, which is a cast that you do to put a hot on the target for 6 seconds, and during that time they take 30% increased healing from you. You also have Soothing Mist, which is a 8-second channel to your target, and during that time you can actually cast Enveloping Mist and Vivify on the target instantly. Last but not least, we have Essence Font, which is a channel that you can also do on the move. It shoots out bolts that heal your teammates and then leave a hot ticking on them. Now these are your main healing spells, but they actually do not go into your rotation apart from the Renewing Mist that you have to spread basically on cooldown. You will be using them during different burst windows and cooldowns that will require you to cast them, but your main healing rotation is actually going to be composed of DPS skills that we're going to be looking at next. However, before we do that, I'll show you one huge single target healing combo that uses all of the skills that we saw previously. And while this is not something that you want to be doing all the time, if your, let's say, tank is in huge trouble, you can use that to save them. Start your Soothing Mist channel on them, and the first thing you want to do is cast one Enveloping Mist so you get the hot on them and they take 30% increased healing from you. And then you can just spam Vivifies. Again, this is a single target healing combo, it's very powerful, it wastes a lot of mana, and it's obviously not going to get you through a heavy AoE damage situation, but it's good to know that it's there if you have the need to use it. Now let's go to the main rotation. As previously mentioned, it's composed of a lot of melee spells that interact with many of your talents. It might look a little bit overwhelming at the start, but just bear with me, I'll give you a priority list of what and when to use later on when we introduce all of the skills. You have 3 main melee skills that you have to use all the time, so make sure you bind them into comfortable keys, and the first one is called Tiger Palm. It does a little bit of damage and it has no cooldown. The second one is called Blackout Kick. This one has a 3-second cooldown and it basically does the same amount of damage as Tiger Palm, although that's not instantly clear from those 2 tips. You might wonder, if they do the same amount of damage, what's the point of pressing Blackout Kick since it has a cooldown? Well, bear with me, you can actually buff the spell a lot later on. And then you have the Rising Sun Kick, which hits pretty hard, but it has a 10-second cooldown attached to it. This one is actually very important because it synergizes with many of your talents that you're going to see in the following slides. These spells seem to be single target at first glance, although you see that's not always the case, but you also have an AoE spell called Spinning Crane Kick. This one is a short channel that you can do on the move and it hits all the targets around you, doing reduced damage after 5. Next on the menu is Feline Stomp, which leaves a blue area on the ground that you want to stay inside after it does the initial healing and damage from the skill itself. It also applies Essence Font bolts to 5 of your allies, which is basically your whole Mythic Plus team. Now, you want to stay on top of the blue area at all times, not only because your abilities have a chance to reset the cooldown so you can cast it again, but there's 2 very valuable talents that buff your healing and damage as well. Your Blackout Kick strikes 3 additional targets, your Tiger Palm strikes twice, and your Spinning Crane Kick heals 4 amount of the damage done. And to make things even better, Failing Stomp and Essence Font give you a buff called Ancient Teachings. For 15 seconds, your allies are healed by amount of the damage done by your Rising Sun Kick, Blackout Kick, and Tiger Palm. Yet another talent called Teachings of the Monastery makes your Tiger Palm buff your Blackout Kick to strike an additional target. On top of that, the Blackout Kick has a chance to reset the cooldown of the Rising Sun Kick. The buff itself stacks to 4 times, which means that your Blackout Kick can hit 4 additional times. So maybe now all of this starts to make sense to you, and if it still looks scary, your main rotation is actually quite simple. If you have less than 5 targets, cast your Feline Stomp, use your Rising Sun Kick on cooldown, including the resets that you might be getting from the Blackout Kicks, and if Rising Sun Kick is not available, then you want to press Tiger Palm twice. This is gonna give you 4 stacks of the Blackout Kick since the Tiger Palm strikes twice inside of the Feline Stomp. So after that, you can press the Blackout Kick, which is going to cleave to 3 targets and hit 4 times in a row. All of these are very likely to reset the cooldown of your Rising Sun Kick, which is also increased while standing inside of the Feline Stomp. But if it doesn't happen, then you can start pressing Tiger Palm again, and you can also spot here with the instant Vivifies that you have from the instant cast talent. All of this is going to do a lot of smart healing to your party because of the Ancient Teachings talent, and you want to keep that up at all times. If 15 seconds passed and you haven't reset your Feline Stomp yet, you can press Essence Font to get the buff again. But if you spend all 15 seconds standing on top of your stomp, you'll probably have it reset by now, so you can use that to reapply the buff. Things are even easier if you have 5 or more targets. You start with Feline Stomp again, and then all you press is Spinning Crane Kick. As you have many targets, the damage that you do to them will be enough to heal your party to full. As you can see, we mentioned so many skills and so many talents up until this point, but your maintenance healing gets down to this very simple main rotation. Before we go to the cooldowns, let's mention the new 4-piece tier set bonus. Your Renewing Mist makes so the target takes 50% increased healing from you for 8 seconds, and the 4-piece tier set bonus does even more passive healing based on the amount of healing that you do to those targets. This doesn't change your playstyle a lot, but it makes the spreading of the Renewing Mists even more important. It also gives you some additional opportunities. For example, that single target healing combo that I showed you at the start, you want to prefix that with a Renewing Mist, so everything you do after that is increased by 50%. Casting a Renewing Mist on somebody and then following up with the instant Vivify is not only going to increase the Vivify by 50%, but it's also going to give you additional healing based on the Invigorating Mist talent. This one is pretty good because it cleaves to all the targets that currently have Renewing Mists, making the spreading of that even more important. And I guess that's a good point to mention the Rising Mist talent, which makes your Rising Sun Kick heal all the targets that currently have Renewing Mist, Essence Font, or Enveloping Mist on them, and extends the duration of the hot effects by 4 seconds. So the more you press that button, the longer the hots are going to be ticking on your teammates, up to double the original duration of those effects. And there's yet another reason to press the Rising Sun Kick button. It's a talent called Rapid Diffusion, and this one applies a Renewing Mist to a nearby target every time you press Rising Sun Kick, or Enveloping Mist for that matter, and that Rising Sun Mist also triggers the Chi Harmony from the 4-piece tier set bonus. So in short, this is actually a very powerful bonus because you'll be doing a lot of passive healing to your group, whether if it's intentional just because you casted the Renewing Mist, or because you pressed one of the other buttons, or your Renewing Mist jump on somebody else. The only minus for M+, of course, is that this tier set bonus does not have a damage component attached to it, but nevertheless, it's a great thing that is going to help you in your dungeon runs. Alright, next we're going to be talking about the cooldowns that you're going to be using when spinning around in melee is not enough to heal your party to full. Starting with the minor cooldowns that you'll basically be pressing once they're available, we have Thunder Focus T. It empowers your next spell, and basically you want to use this with either Essence Font or Rising Sun Kick. There are other options of course, but Essence Fonts will channel 100% faster and it's going to give you additional haste based on your secret infusion talent. Haste happens to be our best stat, as you're going to see later, so getting more of it is not bad at all, although keep in mind that this is not the most mana efficient approach. However, if you use it with Rising Sun Kick, you basically almost reset the cooldown of the spell, which happens to be your hardest hitting single target kick, which is not only going to do a lot of damage, but it's also going to do a lot of healing based on your Ancient Teachings talent. Zen Pulse is another 30-second cooldown. This one is a little bit more tricky to use because it only brings you value if you use it when you pull huge packs. Casting it on your tank or another melee that already has Enveloping Mist sticking on them is going to trigger a second pulse at 80% effectiveness. And keep in mind that this is going to do a lot of damage, but it's also going to do a lot of healing if there are a lot of mobs around your target. You can definitely use it as a huge single target healing as long as your target is close to the mobs. You want to press that button on cooldown as long as you're pulling big packs, but on single target and bosses you probably don't even want to bother with it. Let's also use this section to mention a talent called Mana Tea, which is basically going to make the mana non-existent for you. You gain Mana Tea stacks basically as you progress through the dungeon, and once you press the button you start channeling, giving you mana back and reducing the cost of your spells. You want to press this as much as you can either use it before the pull starts, or even during combat if you know there's a downtime where you don't need to press buttons, and using the Energizing Brew talent is going to make the channel even faster. Let me also briefly mention two other skills, Chi Burst and Chi Waste. Those share a node in your talent tree, and you most certainly have to pick one of them just because you want to reach the talents below them. But both are somewhat weak, so even if you don't press that button in your dungeon runs, you'll be fine. I'm not going to include these in the rotation, but you generally want to pick Chi Burst and you want to cast it if there's 6 or more mobs. And now to summarize your short cooldowns, you want to press Thunder Focus 2 basically on cooldown, you want to press Zen Pulse if there are 4 or more mobs, and then use Mana Tea as much as you can and whenever you can afford to do it. These just flow into your main rotation, so basically nothing changes there. Alright, and now let's talk about the big hitting boys that can get you out of very tough situations. Shalon's gift is going to generate orbs around you up to 10 total, and when you press the button you're going to heal based on the amount of orbs that you're going to consume. The orbs are generated while you're in combat, and you have a talent that reduces the amount of time needed to generate a new orb down to 4 seconds. Another talent makes it so that you hit 5 targets total when you press the button, which means that if you're in 10 orbs and you press the button, you're going to heal everybody in your party to full. That can happen once every 40 seconds, but even at 6 or 7 stacks, you're going to do a lot of healing with this button. So you basically have a huge AoE heal every 30-ish seconds or so, which makes the spell very powerful. The next major cooldown is Chi the Red Crane. This one is a little bit more complicated to use, but it's actually even more powerful. First you're going to run 2 additional talents which reduce the cooldown down to 1 minute and gives a huge absorb shield to everybody in your party once you summon the Chi. While the Crane is active, you're going to be doing a lot of additional healing when you press your Blackout Kick, Rising Sun Kick or Spinning Crane Kick, based of course on the amount of targets that you have around you. And every time you press one of these buttons, you reduce the cast time of your next Enveloping Mist by 33%. That means that once you get 3 stacks, your next Enveloping Mist is instant free cast. That is not only going to heal your initial target, but based on your Celestial Harmony talent, it's going to cast Enveloping Breath and heal all 5 party members. So basically, every minute you press Chi, you give everybody Absorb Shield, and then you get up to 3 stacks of Enveloping Mist reduction time, you cast that, and you give them even more healing. It's extremely powerful cooldown, which of course requires you to be hitting the target so you can generate the stacks. But as long as you do that, the only question remains is, how do you survive the next 48 seconds so you get Chi back? Another huge game changer is Revival. This is a huge instant cast AoE heal that hits everybody in your party, and not only heals, but it also removes all magical poison and disease effects that might be present on your party members. If you use that one smartly, you can get huge value out of it, as you can, for example, remove all bursting stacks from all your party members, or you can remove all the unstable corruption stacks from everybody during the end gauntlet in Throne of the Tides. Of course, being that powerful, the skill comes at the hefty price of a 3-minute cooldown, so use it wisely. Last but not least, we have Life Cocoon, which puts a huge shield on your target. It increases their healing taken from halts, it puts Renewing Mist and Enveloping Mist on them, and there's a talent that reduces the cooldown down to 1 minute and 15 seconds. That cooldown means that you can use it every pull, basically, and you can use it to save either your tank or a teammate, or even yourself from whatever tough situation you manage to get yourself into. And now, to summarize the cooldowns that you're gonna be using, use Life Cocoon aggressively on demand whenever you need it. Press Shaylin's Gift at least at 6 or 7 stacks whenever you need huge AoE heals. And if you don't have enough stacks, just pop GG and chill, as this is very powerful. It seems like you don't have many cooldowns, but the downtime between Shaylin's Gift and Chiji is not that big since both are very short cooldowns. So you basically need to just survive the time when neither of them is up. You can use Revival as a filler to get through those tough times, although sometimes you might want to save Revival for a very specific situation where not only you need the healing, but you also need the dispel portion of it. When it comes down to stats, of course, item level primary stat are the king here, and your best secondary stat is Haste. It makes your hot stick faster, it lowers your GCD cooldown, and it also lowers the cooldown of many of your spells, so you can actually do more faster. After Haste, both Crit Strike and Verse will give you more throughput for both damage and healing. You probably want to put a little bit more emphasis on Crit Strike because it scales a little bit better than Verse, but keep in mind that versatility also gives you damage reduction, which could be key in higher level dungeons. What Mastery does is it only increases your Gust of Mist healing, which is not bad for throughput, especially early on the season when you're learning new dungeons or if you need more HPS, but generally that's not going to be one of the useful stats that you're going to be running in Mythic Plus. When it comes to M+ utility, unfortunately the Monk doesn't bring Lust or Battle Rest to the game. You do bring Mystic Touch, which increases the physical damage done by 5% for all party members. However, in Mythic Plus, that's highly dependent on your composition. It's definitely not bad in most cases, and keep in mind that to apply it, you have to hit the targets, even if it's with Spinning Crane Kick. When it comes to the CC department, you actually have quite a few things to control the mobs. You have Leg Sweep, which is AoE stun, Ring of Peace denies an area on the ground, which could be used to interrupt, and it has some other implications, like keeping Spitefuls away or knocking mobs out of the sanguine pools. You have Paralysis, which incapacitates a mob for 1 minute, you can also use it as an interrupt. And then you have your regular interrupt, which is a melee range, but at least it has a 15-second cooldown. On the defensive department, you have Expel Harm. If you haven't used that spell before, it got buffed, so definitely put it on your bars. It's an instant self-heal that hits for a lot, and it also does some damage, which is negligible. Dampen Harm is your regular 2-minute defensive that you can pop when you need it. And Diffuse Magic is going to remove all magical effects on you and turn them back to their original caster. That's actually quite strong because it's not only extra dispel that you can use on yourself, but it can also do a lot of damage by diffusing hard-hitting magic effects on their original caster. Let's also mention Healing Elixir here, which is now a passive and it triggers by itself when you drop low and heals you for a little bit. And then there's Fortifying Brew, which is a huge defensive, but it has so large cooldown that I personally do not use that. You can reduce it down to 4 minutes, and you can definitely make some good use out of it in the Mythic Plus dungeons, but I'm personally deferred by the very long cooldown. When it comes to movement, you can cast Tiger's Lust either on yourself or on a party member. You can propel yourself forward using Row or Chi Torpedo. These share a node, so you can pick only one of them. And you can also teleport yourself around using Transcendence, although this requires a little bit more skill and a little bit of a setup, but if you use it smartly enough, you can actually avoid some pretty tough mechanics. Let's also mention a few smaller buffs that you bring to the party. Close to Heart increases the healing that everybody takes as long as they're near you. The same stands true for reduced area of effect damage taken. You can even provide movement speed to nearby allies, and then you can also use Touch of Death pretty smartly to get rid of, let's say, ads that spawn or mobs that are at low health. Of course, all of that comes with the correct talent build. Here's what I'm using, and you can use that and take it from the description of this video. There are a few things to consider and tweak. For example, you can take the Fortifying Brew talents if you want to use that. I don't. There's two 2-point talents at the left side at the bottom. One of them increases your healing done if you heal somebody below 35%, and the other one gives you damage reduction if you take a big chunk of damage. Both are valuable, but of course you don't have enough points to put 2 points in both of them, so it's up to you to consider and figure out which one is going to be more useful to you. So that's about it for this Mistweaver Monk guide. Check the description of this video for some links to the weak ores that you could be using to help you out, and keep an eye on my YouTube channel for more videos on the same topic. A written version of this guide is soon going to be available on GameOnFire.io, so keep an eye out there as well. And if you have any questions, opinions or feedback, do let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, good luck in your keys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.